Good evening, friends. I, Rakhi Sharma, welcome you all in this interactive teleconferencing program of Advanced Certificate in Power Distribution Management. So today we are discussing the Block 3, Project Development and Implementation of your Course 3, Management of Power Distribution of this ACPDN program. And in these sessions, we will discuss project planning and execution, mainly the turnkey contracts and the unit rate contracts. So we have the experts. It's our privilege to have Mr. A.K. Vadhera, Professor, Army Institute of Management from Greater Noida. Now I would request Professor Vadhera to take up today's session.
Good evening, everybody. Myself A.K. Vadhera. I've got 40 years experience in the industry and academia in planning, executing and doing the appraisal of various types of projects in various industries, including power. Now let's understand. It's not coming. Now, what is a project? Project is anything. Project is, if I want to take up a project, means it is a set of activities that need to be completed to accomplish the objective for which I am taking up. Performing a marriage ceremony is also a project. Now, but here what we are talking about, a industrial project. Now, in any industrial project has to pass through various cycles. One is, first of all, a pre-investment phase. It means that before you take up a decision to set up a project, you have to carry out the project identification studies, carry out a pre-feasibility study, which is nothing but a preliminary technical feasibility report, followed by a technical feasibility report, preparation of techno-feasibility report. Then you have the implementation phase where you negotiate, with the negotiating and contracting phase, where we negotiate with the contractors, suppliers of machinery. Then you have the engineering design, where the engineering consultants do the design for the project. Then you take up the construction of the project, and while the construction is in progress and is towards the end of the start of the project, you train the people so that they are ready when the project is ready for commissioning. And then you have the planned commissioning and startup of the project, and after the project is started, you have the operation phase of the project. And that is not the end of it. You are to take up an expansion of the project over a period of time, and if something goes wrong over it, you have to see that you have to set it right. That is, you have to renovate it, modernize it. That's what is your complete product development cycle. Now, let's understand that when we are making a feasibility study, what we are looking for. There's no difference between the feasibility report which is prepared by a promoter or a consultant and the appraisal which is done by a appraising authority, which is a bank or institution. You both are interested in the viable projects. The only difference is in the feasibility report which is prepared by a consultant or the promoter, when it comes to the institution, the banks, they have a relook at it. And depending upon their past experience that they have, they will like to see what are the various lacunas in the project, whether the project is support worthy or not. So both are interested in a viable project. There is no difference between the project formulation and the appraisal. Both the promoters, the consultants and the institutional banks are interested in the viable projects. Now, what we mean viable? When we make a technical feasibility report or the feasibility report we call it, we are interested in the viability. Viability we are looking into from different angles. First of all, the most important part is the managerial competence. A project, however good may be, if the people behind the project are not worthy or do not have the experience of implementing the project successfully, this project is going to be a failure without any reason. Now, if a project is bad, not properly conceived, but still the people behind the project are good, it is surely going to be a success. So the managerial competence is the most important part of any project. Now, assuming that the project is in the hands of competent management, the next part is the marketability. Unless until I have a market for a project, even if I set up the project, if there is no market for the project, my project is going to be failure. So my first part is that I have to be sure that there is a market for the product which I want to set up. So when you make a feasibility report, you don't take into account all these factors at one stage. What you do is, you study the marketability of your project, and if you find that there is a market, you go ahead. If there is no market, stop the preparation of the feasibility report there itself. So the next stage is your preparation of the technical feasibility. What I mean by technical feasibility is, I want to know whether I would be able to make what I want to make within a reasonable cost of production, and I should be able to sell in the market at sufficient margin which gives me profit, which gives me return for the investment that I have made in the project. That is what means the technical feasibility project. If I see that the technical project is technical feasible, I will go to the next stage, and if I find the project is not technical feasible, I will stop the project there itself. So there is no point in doing my next stage, which is the financial viability. Here what I am interested, I mean by financial viability means that what return that is going to give me, whether the project, the investment that which I am making, whether this is worth the investment I am making, whether it will give me sufficient returns to give me profit. It should be able to give me, I should have sufficient funds out of this project to pay to the lenders in terms of principal and interest. I should have sufficient funds to pay to the equity shareholders who are invested in the equity of the company. So I should have sufficient funds for that. What it means is the project is financially viable. Now if the project is financially viable, you have earlier listened to the point that the economic viability. That economic viability means a project may be financially viable, means when I am looking into the financial viability, I am looking at it from the angle of the private promoter. If, for example, if I am taking up a whiskey project, it may be financially viable, it may be giving very good return to me in terms of profits, but it is not desirable from the economic point of view. I should not, if these funds are limited, I would like to take up a project for the manufacture of cement or steel, rather than take up a project for the manufacture of whiskey. So it means I am looking into from the economic benefits point of view. So when we are looking from the economic point of view, I am trying to look at it from the whether it is being beneficial to the economy, to the country, to the society. That's what I mean. A project, for example, if you take up a hydrothermal plant, when you are the company which is taking up a hydro plant, what it is there, it is supplying water to the farmers and charging something for it. So in terms of financial viability, I will be concerned with the income I generate by selling my water to the farmers. But if I look at the economic viability, I would be interested in that by supplying this water to the farmers, how much is their output increasing? That is it is economic benefit. By forming a dam, I am ensuring that those areas which were earlier be flooded with water, there are no more floods there. So I am saving in terms of the cost that I have to incur, in terms of loss of property, in loss of income of the people, in rehabilitating those people, that I am saving by setting up a project. So this means if I look into the economic angle, I have to consider that is what is called the economic viability of the project. Now these are when I say the managerial competence, it means the management has to be competent, it has to be entrepreneur skills, it has a management skills. Now the market, these are the various aspects which we need to look in the marketability of the project, but the basic objective is that there should be sufficient gap between demand and supply, and this should be the need of the customers. Now technology, when I look into technology, what I am interested in, we have to evaluate the alternate technologies available, stage of the technology, what is the technology package, When a technology package means whether I want to have a complete detailed project report prepared by consultancy organization or I want to get something less from him. That's what is the package. Now its availability and cost of the technology, whether it is tried elsewhere, license to cover the know-how, the arrangements, erection, training to the staff. Then we have the size of the plant is most important. What size of the plant? What kind of thermal plant you want to have? It should be economic viable. Location, this is desirable. Location and site. And what are the materials and the inputs which are desired by it. Now the plant and machinery. What is the plant and machinery required? We have to ensure that all the required machineries are available. And then we have to show that the plant layout, when we have to make a layout of the plant in such a way that there is a minimum movement of man, material and machine. The purpose is that there should be no wastage of any effort in conducting the movement of the man, material and machines. So now when we assess the viability of the project, first of all we need to look into the cost of the project. That's what has been talked to by the previous speaker. Then you need to cover out the cost of production and profitability and cash flow. What is the cost of production, profitability and cash flow? And then on this basis you need to determine the financial viability. That is what you need to know is what is the debt equity ratio is in line with the profitability. There is no standard debt equity ratio. Many institutions prescribe some ratios which is not the final authority. A company, depending upon its project, it has to decide its own debt equity ratio. There is no standard norm to be followed by all projects. The debt service cover ratio means that I should have sufficient funds generated from the project to pay towards my interest burden in terms of interest and principal, and that I should be able to also pay dividend to my shareholders. Now then is the break-even point. It is that level of operation where there is no profit, no loss. The lower the break-even point, the better it is. Because even if I am able to operate at that level, I will be able to make sufficient profits. Now higher is the IRR, the more it is desirable, and naturally it should be more than my cost of capital. Now here what I mean by cost of capital is there are two sources mainly which go into the project. One is the equity and the second is the debt. And you can have a different proportion of equity and debt. Cost of equity is what the shareholders expect from the company. That is the cost of equity. And the cost of debt is the interest burden that you have to pay to the term lenders. But since that is considered to be as tax deductible, the rate of interest that you pay net of tax is the cost of debt. So when the proportion I calculate the weighted average cost of equity and debt, and that is which is called my cost of capital, and so my IRR should be more than the cost of the capital, and if my IRR is more than the cost of the capital, I will accept a project, and if my IRR is less than the cost of capital, I will not accept a project. And now then we mean sensitivity analysis. See, then what we mean by sensitivity analysis, there are certain critical factors. For example, I may not be able to achieve the production envisaged. I may be achieving less production, or my cost of production, some factors, the cost of production might go up, the cost of raw material may go up, the power utility cost may go up. So I will try to find out which are the critical factors, and I need to see that how my project would behave if these factors are changed. In sensitivity analysis, what I do, I change one variable at a time and see how my project behaves in terms of break-even, in terms of higher. In scenario analysis, what I see there in practice, what we talk about is not only one variable changes at a time, it may vary variables. For example, the power cost may go up, the steel price may also go up if you are in a manufacturing line, and my sales price may also go down. So all these three factors together, which are likelihood which is going to happen, I will make a analysis which is called scenario analysis. I will anticipate what are the various scenarios possible, which are the various permutation combinations possible, and see that how my project behaves under these circumstances, and this will warn me, this will tell me what I should be prepared for when I am planning a project or when I am executing a project. And that what means is the financial viability of a project. Now, Once you have decided to take up a project, then the next stage starts, which is the project implementation stage. Now when I am implementing a project, here my two stages, I can execute the project on terms of rate contract, I can execute the burn or turnkey basis. Now I take up the next is the rate contracts and the turnkey contracts basis.
So friends, as these are the interactive sessions, we would request you to ask the questions from our expert related to the topic. We will welcome all the questions. Thank you.
Okay. Now, when I am executing a project, I can do it in two ways. I can do it in the unit rate contracts and the turnkey contracts. Now, I will take up this topic, which is of very importance, and nowadays we have been mainly executing the projects on the basis of unit rate contracts. But in some cases we are also doing on turnkey contracts. In the case of power sector, mostly the units have been done in the case of unit rate contracts, but some progress has been made in execution of the projects in the power sector on the basis of the turnkey contracts. But as regards the execution of project on turnkey basis for power transmission is concerned, this is a relatively new concept, and this needs to be emphasized, and we should take up the projects on this basis because there are many advantages of this method of execution the projects as compared to the unit rate contracts. So what we will do is, these are the learning objectives that we will be doing about this. One is we will understand that what is a unit rate contract and what is a unit turnkey contract. We will make a comparative analysis of these two types of contracts, and then we will develop the turnkey specifications. Now what be turnkey? If you see the literally meaning of the turnkey means, I give the project to somebody, ask him to do everything for me, and at the end of the day he gives me the key, I go and open and start the project. That's what it means, turnkey. Everything is done by him, so this is called the turnkey. So when we will see how to develop the turnkey specifications, because what is the need is that I want to make him the party with whom I am giving the turnkey, I am going to make him accountability in terms of performance, in terms of timely execution, and the responsibility of implementation agencies for delivering the reliable quality power within the optimal fixed and operating costs. It means I want that the optimal means they should be such that it should be neither high, it should not be low, it should be what is maximum possible. That is what it means. I should be able to reduce my fixed cost to the barest minimum, I should be able to reduce my operating cost to the bare minimum. That's what it means, the optimum cost. And then we describe how team projects can help to achieve the desired performance. This is how we are going to proceed in this. Now, a project, now as I said, now one main important part is when you are planning a project, most important part is the quality of formulation of a project. If a project is properly formulated, this is going to be a success. And if the project is not properly formulated, it is going to be surely failure. So when I am planning a project, my quality of planning is most important. I may take more time, doesn't matter, but the quality should be good. But the next part is when I am implementing a project, what is important is the time. I decide to go ahead with a project, I have to see that I implement the project in the least possible time. What happens if I am delaying a project? Because if I am delaying a project, what happens is, during the construction period, I have taken a loan from the various agencies, which I am required to pay at least in the interest part of it. And that interest part has to be taken care of. So therefore, the more is the implementation period than I have planned for, it means they are going to be over in the cost of the project. And I have not planned the resources for it. And if I have not planned the resources for it, I will be in a soup, because when I go later on to some lending agency or promoters or anybody else, with a begging bowl for meeting the owner, they dictate the terms to me, and that terms are very costly. So better why resort to that system? It is better plan a project. My experience shows that the majority of the projects fail because they are not properly planned. So planning a project is the most important part of this for the success of a project. Now, then we talk about in a distribution project, the considerable preparation work has to be done for developing a project scheme for a viable proper power distribution project and schemes, and this involves what? Planning and design of distribution system to meet the load growth. We want to see when we expect that there is going to be load growth, so we want to plan and design the system accordingly. Then the improvement in the reliability, security and quality of power supply. That's our second objective. And then we want to have a safety of operation. We want to evolve a scientific automation and load management system, better customer service and the integration with the distribution system. And that is what we are looking for in the distribution projects. The scheme for improvement and strengthening of the system should be based on detailed study, which should be unique to each site. The improvement and strengthening of the system should be taken up in two phases, short term and long term. When I talk about short term, it means I'm interested in the loss reduction. But when I'm talking about long term, I'm planning for the increased capacity of the plant to take care of the future load demand. Now the considerations which I need to take into account for scheme formulation include ensuring quality power delivery through proper voltage regulation, reliability in the power supply through network configurations, and the reactive power compensation for healthy operation. And the schemes should have been worked to be within the framework of policies, guidelines and acts, adherence to Electricity Act, CA guidelines, safety rules, state government regulations, environmental laws and related policies and the guidelines. The existing loss level situation and the level of improvement that can be achieved on the implementation of the scheme be developed should be assessed as it contributes to bankability of the DPR. Now what I am saying, when I am saying what our project should be bankable. Bankable means that the cost that I am incur to implement them, the result that I get out of, the profit that I get out of it should be sufficient to take care of the cost that I am incurring, and that is what is bankable. A banker would or an institution will support a project if they find that the project is viable, and that's what I have talked about. What I mean by a viable project. Now when we execute the project, now as we said, after we have decided to go ahead with the project scheme execution is the next part. The planning and execution of distributed networks are always linked to demand from customers and expected load growth in the defined area. The schemes in power distribution have so far usually been planned, awarded and executed by the local officials. The concept of turnkey contract for project execution is relatively new and is not being encouraged in the power sector. This concept of turnkey is very relatively new factor. Now why I want a turnkey contract? The basic thing, this is being recapitalized I want from the contractor to whom I give the turnkey contract, I want system performance guarantees from him. I want that he should execute the project in time. I want that the project should be completed fast. And since I am giving the major role to the turnkey contractor, my responsibility as an employer or as a utility reduces to a great extent, and with my limited availability of manpower with me, I can execute large number of projects, because what I am doing is I am delegating major part of the work which I was doing as a unit rate contractor, I am transferring it to the turnkey contractor, and in turn I am expecting certain thing much more than that. I can do it for myself. That is system performance guarantees, timely execution, faster pace. So turnkey contract was usually for the at the moment. What we have done is the turnkey contracts has so far been planned in the case of power plants, setting up power plants. And because here we can specifically design what we want. We want a power plant of 500 megawatt capacity, or 250 megawatt capacity, or 100 megawatt capacity. So I can define that, and this is what I tell to the contractor, and the contractor supplies everything. He arranges the machinery, he does the detailed drawing and engineering, and he implements it, and at the end of the day he gives me key, I go and operate the power plant. That's called the turnkey contract. But in the case of power distribution sector, now here what we have to do is we have to have a different parameters for our substations, for our transformers, for our breakers. So we need to develop this system for executing turnkey contracts for power distribution sector. Now let us see what is the unit rate contract. What is if I am talking about the turnkey contract, what I will do is I will see what is the unit rate contract. What we mean by this, what are the disadvantages of the unit rate contract, and why I need to switch over to the turnkey contract, and what are the advantages of the turnkey contract vis-a-vis the unit rate contract. What is the unit rate contracts? The major items are procured by a central team in large quantity, which is aggregated indent of various offices. For example, a head office of a company, he can take the indent of the requirement of various items from the various locations where the plant is located, and then once it gets this requirement, what it does it procures this at one go, at one place. Once this is procured, this material and equipment are issued to the various indenting units as per the demand received from them. And the small petty items are procured locally by the different locations at the plant. Equipment erection is done by the departmentally or by the local vendors. In nutshell, what happens? A large number of employees look after various activities. Utilities had as employees sufficient resources to carry out. Now this is the drawback of this system. What is done? The utility, the company, your power plant, your distribution system. Now they are engaged in planning, project management, engineering design, procurement of items on the basis of yearly contracts, rate contracts, supervision of implementation, including stores, and in some cases even construction. Now this is it means the utility which is executing a project on rate contract basis, it is doing lot of activities itself. Now in a turnkey contract, what I want to do is, I want to delegate this responsibility, I want to delegate this work to the contractor, and I want to only have a central control over him. And that is what it means. With my limited manpower, I would be able to execute large number of projects which otherwise would have been not possible when I do the contract on the unit rate basis. Now when I am talking about the engineering projects, what happens is, there are two things. When I am talking engineering project, means it's a project, complete project. So here there are two things, supplies and associated services. Supplies means the equipment, and the associated services mean construction of civil works, construction of other things, facilities in the plant. That's called the services. So what happens is, in the first option, now what we can do is, we can have both these things at one go. One person can do it, both the supply and social services it can do one, or we can have independent of these two. For the first option, what we do is, that the employer prepares or gets prepared through its consulting agents the specification of the goods to be supplied and works out their quantities and gets the goods procured as per the procedure of procurement through the one or more suppliers. And for the other component, he gives the work to somebody else, and that somebody else executes it for him. Other agencies are appointed for carrying out the civil works, structural works, cabling, etc. The supervision of work at the site is the responsibility of the agency contractor appointed for services, but in their own interest, the employer also employs a personnel or consulting engineers for carrying out the supervision. And for specialized equipment services, the supplier is also required to depute experts for supervision services in respect of equipment system. In some cases, installation of the associated work is also got executed departmentally by the employer or also gets resources from the others. Now, in the second option, what means is both are got done by one. That is means in the second option is executed the item rate contract or the unit rate contract, wherein the goods to be supplied with the specification and the quantities are clearly defined and the erection services in respect of the said proposal. In this type of execution, the engineering is done by the employer themselves and the consultants, and the contest execution is done on the basis of well-defined BOQs, bill of material quantities. It means that you specify what is the bill of quantities, and on the basis of that the contractor executes the work. Now, in this, what happens is it is the responsibility of the employer or the utility to supply him all the designs and help him all the things. So it is not the responsibility of the unit rate contractor to ensure the quality performance of the contract, that he is not responsible for it. If the employer or the utility person delay the design, the delay is done by the contractor also. Now, that's what I have said. Now here, if there is any delay in any agency, there is a complete delay in the project. So what it happens is, the project authorities are bogged down in following up the various authorities, seeing that they are supplied the various designs for erection, and they also ensure necessary supply of materials to them. So that is they are bogged down in these small things. Now what are the deficiencies in the rate contract system? Let's understand this before we get changed to the turnkey contract. Now it means in the rate contract there is a delay in getting the material. Now what happens, what we say is done is here, there is a central procurement department which gets indents of supply of materials to the various offices. Once they are received, it is procured centrally and it is issued to all the persons who require it. Now this means if the indenting officers or the companies or the offices do not indent in time, there is a delay in getting the material, and in turn delaying in supply of material to the utilities. And there may also be a case when the authorities do not supply the material to one plant because they need to divert it to some other plant in the exigencies. So what happens is, since there is a delay in getting the material, the project gets delayed. So this is the first part is, since there is a delay in getting the material in this system of procurement, the project gets delayed. Now then what happens is, the next is the expiry of guarantee warranty period. Now the materials are stocked, they are received and they are stocked in the stores and they are not used because the project is delayed, or there is a delay in the finalization of the contract. What happens in the meantime, there is an expiry of guarantee warranty period of the equipment or the raw material, whatever is procured. So what happened here, the utility suffers financially because if the equipment does not perform satisfactory, or there is a malfunctioning when it is erected, they cannot take up with the supplier because there has already been expiry of the guarantee and the warranty period. So that is the second drawback of the contract system. Then there is a difficulty in the project coordination. Now what happens is, in the contract there are many authorities, the authorities which are executing projects simultaneously, and it becomes very difficult for the utility to coordinate with them, because every agency will like to find fault with the other, saying that I am not able to execute the work because that work is not being done. For example, if it is in a construction of a building, if the electrical contractor can always say, I cannot lay the conduits because the civil work is not complete, and the plumber can say, I cannot lay the pipelines because my civil work is not complete. But if the same thing is given to one authority as a coordinator and on a turnkey basis, now that responsibility comes to the contractor itself, and he will ensure that this problem of coordination is not there. So difficulty in the project coordination is the next problem in this. Now the lack of response from well-equipped agencies. Now what happens is, since this is a unit rate contract, now here what happens is, the job is very small, because major work is done by the contracting agency himself, the utility himself. The work which is to be done by the outsider, or on which the unit contracts are awarded, they do not have sufficient incentive to take up this project, because the profits is not substantial. So that is why they are the good contractors, the well-equipped agencies do not come up to taking up the unit rate contracts. And because of this, there are local contractors who gain monopoly, and they do not do good work, and at the same time they indulge in undesirable practices. So the lack of response from well-equipped agencies is another drawback of the system. So the concept of turnkey is finding favor in execution of the projects, because these defects are not there in the unit rate contracts. Now what is a turnkey contract? Now the concept of getting a project executed on turnkey basis is relatively new. Now as I said, the turnkey contract is an agreement in which a contractor designs, constructs and manages the project until it is ready to be handed over to the client and operation can begin. So he does everything for you. You have to simply go, take up the key from him and start the project. So your responsibility is to only have a control over it. Now we see how we control over it. Now the deliveries from inception to execution are clearly spelled out, and responsibility of providing defined deliverables in time lies with the contractor. Contractor responsibility to supply and erect all equipment material as per specifications of the contract. He is also responsible for engineering, testing, commissioning and handing over the working plan to the client. So it means the entire responsibility of the executing of the project, starting from design to construct, doing the project management, it is his responsibility, and he hands over to the client to take up its operation immediately afterwards. Now here all equipment subsystems are supplied and erected by a single agency. Single agency is turnkey contractor. It is easier to coordinate. If something is wrong, I can go to that agency. What is this? Why this project is not getting completed in time? More time can be devoted by the utility on the quality aspect. Now, since the responsibility do not have much other work, because all the major work and responsibility has been passed on to the contractor, the utility can devote its time, its manpower towards quality aspect of the utility. The amount and time of payment is specified at the time of signing of the agreement. How the payment is to be made is clearly specified in the signing of the contract. Contractor assumes responsibility for not only constructing productive installations, but also ensuring that they operate effectively before turning them over to the client. It means what he ensures is after he has erected, completed it, he does the test runs, he starts operation of this and see that they operate satisfactorily before the plant is handed over to the utility which has awarded contract to the turnkey contractor. The contractor is able to arrange more favorable financing terms because here contractor is going to do lot of job. He is going to arrange all the equipment. He is going to arrange all the construction. He is going to see that it is properly designed. So what it means, he will be a person of repute who has similar experience elsewhere, and since he is a person of repute and he has considerable experience in the past, he can go to various funding agencies and the funding agencies will be prepared to fund them for his requirements at favorable terms which otherwise may not be possible for the utility. The utility of the contractor ends when the completed installation is turned over to the client. Turnkey contract is considered to be the modus operandi of executing a project where the same agency, it may be a single contractor, it may be consortium. It is not necessary that it can be only a single contractor which can be given turnkey contract. It can be consortium of companies. 2, 3, 4 companies can be joined together, or it may be joint venture, or it may be even joint venture. So it means responsibility can be given to them who is responsible both for delivering the goods for the project and carrying out erection, installation and commissioning if required of the goods, as well as doing associated site work. So it means the entire responsibility is given to the turnkey contractor. Now what it means is, in the widest possible sense, turnkey can have almost, if it's full literal meaning, where the employer has nothing to do except turning the key, so the project gets commissioned and put to its desired use. That means the turnkey, as I rightly said in the beginning, this is mean that the entire responsibility is given to the contractor and he is only a coordinator and he is only facilitator to ensuring that if you have any problem at the site, it can be solved out. So that is the nutshell a turnkey contract.
So friends, now the time to take the short break, and Mr. Professor Vadera is explaining in very detail about the turnkey contracts and the unit rate contracts. We will again be in discussion after 15 minutes. Thank you.